tell me how this started, how this formed in your mind, where you came up with the whole piece about Habitudes. Can you think of a moment that crystallized it for you? Can you think of the moment that term became the term that you coined for this?
I think there were several moments because I get to spend time in preschool classrooms all the way to university classrooms. I started noticing this trend before I really started delving into the research. It's very obvious when you walk and you spend time around 3- and 4-year-olds what their spirit is and what they wonder about. It's a whole different way of operating than walking into an 8th grade classroom. So I was very aware of this discrepancy. But then as I started getting engaged in this dialogue about 21st century skills and that we have to do this, we have to find a program and a curriculum that teaches this. And I'm thinking, this is so simple. Just go visit a preschool classroom. You can see it in action right there. So I developed a system that was a framework that schools and teachers could operate under in 3 phases. And I call this name it, claim it, sustain it. So the naming it part is really identifying, more importantly for teachers, because kids know this happens during learning outside of school, but to actually put a label on the behaviors we're trying to ultimately create, so that when we see a child at a block center that spent 6 days working on the same structure, we can label that and say, I really love the perseverance it took to stick with that. Tell me what you are imagining. So putting a label on something then makes it controllable. You cannot control what you are unaware of. And the more that we label consistent behaviors, the more we have a chance to replicate them. So naming it's really important. And then claiming it is in action of learning. What does courageous learners do in math? And what does curiosity exhibit itself to be in science? And so that in the process, in context, we are saying with very specific language, I notice when you blank. That's a really good example of blank. Can you hear me, Peggy?
I sure can. And I'm just thinking as you speak, does this work? How do you feel this supports or really fits into our whole new standards agenda?
Besides that, I was a part of one of the P21 states, but in every state that I work in, these skills are underneath the ability to get to the standard. So the standard might say students will understand or think mathematically or think scientifically. You cannot do that without a specific disposition, a mindset, a series of behaviors and disciplines. You don't just automatically memorize what it means to study like a scientist or solve problems like a mathematician. If you study the work in those fields, you will recognize very quickly the kind of perseverance that takes, the kind of courage it takes, the kind of awareness that it takes to notice things that only a scientist would notice or a mathematician. So an example that happens in the classroom today in terms of claiming it is we talk about how we want kids to be problem solvers. You can do that if you don't know how to ask good questions. So during lessons today, from kindergarten all the way to 6th grade, the teaching point was, what do we need to practice to become better question askers? And that's what we worked through, very specifically, very deliberately. Now, are you guys, can you hear me?
Yes, we're hearing you fine. And
okay.
I'm wondering if I want to ask this question, and it's like the gorilla in the corner question.
Okay.
But where does technology, where do the new social technologies and the social media tools, where do they play in with Habitudes?
They have everything to do with the Habitudes and nothing to do with the Habitudes, and let me explain that. And that's really where we're missing the boat, because we're trying to say, is it this, is it that? To learn successfully at any level, whether it's online or offline, these traits are non-negotiable. There is not one discipline that, if you study, you do not see these habitudes in action. What technology does is it allows us to really experience the necessity of not just a few people having these habitudes, but an entire community of citizenry, because technology has created the urgency of our ability to be adaptable. Things are changing so rapidly and so quickly. Those that are being left behind, not one or two students, generations that are unwilling to relearn and unlearn. Not just unwilling to be curious about the new things, but to be flexible and adaptable and courageous to give up old habits and ideas. It takes an extraordinarily courageous person to say, you know what, I was really good at doing this. Why would I try to do something else when I know I'm not going to be good? And the example I used today with kids was Michael Jordan. Why, when he is a superstar in basketball, would he go and work in baseball and not be a superstar when he didn't need to? And he did it for the exact purpose of working through the ability to be adaptable. That makes him a better athlete, not only a better basketball player, but a better baseball player. And I think there's not very many people, once they've achieved a level of proficiency and excellence, that are willing to give that up easily and say, you know what, I'm willing to be uncomfortable. I'm willing to be a new learner. And technology forces you to do that. Because I'm going to give you an example in our experience right here. I don't know anything about Second Life. I have no idea. I have comfortability and success on blogs, on Twitter, but in this world, I'm a brand new learner. But I'm okay being here, sitting with you right now, not because of my technology skills, but because of my habitudes. Because I know enough to ask the right questions. I know enough not to panic, to persevere, because there will be difficulties. I am courageous enough to take this risk because I know that I will do it transparently and honestly, and I'll have an amazing group of people to support me. Where some learners would say, you know what, because I'm not perfect, because I don't know everything in here, I'm not even going to explore Second Life. And look at the opportunities being missed because we lack the habitudes. Students wouldn't think a lick about trying something new. I would say, you know what, I learned about Second Life. Oh, can you show me too? But when I mentioned this to teachers today, it was complete shutdown. Why would you do that? What is the point of that? I could never imagine that. It's two completely different conversations, having conversations with kids and having conversations with adults.
You know, Second Life is a great example of that, and I found it's pretty much the case with teachers with a lot of the new tools. And
right.
And I do use that exact phrase, so I'm on the right track. I do say, be courageous, be fearless, be courageous, and you know, when you relieve people of that anxiety, that to be perfect at something, when you give them permission to fail, and say, you know, let's go in and make some mistakes today and see what we learn from them, and there's a whole new freedom that's afforded then.
And who operates with that disposition, Peggy? Who operates with that disposition? Let's explore it. Let's discover it. Let's try it.